As World War II ended, Holocaust survivors were left scrambling to put their lives back together. For many, remaining in Europe was out of the question. Others, who had already managed to flee, were left waiting for relatives they would never see again.
I went through planning to be killed after the war. So we were in a displaced person camp. I got married there. And after more than 3 years, my father had a brother in Brooklyn who arrived here in 1911. He sent us papers and we arrived in 1949. I wanted to get out of Europe. It was enough. Went through enough.
I met some as I came back from the camps. I met some I knew, but very few, maybe 20 that came back that I knew.
There was 8,000 Jews at the beginning of the war in our town. Of the 8,000, 16 came back.
They had lists of people that started it. You know, DP, displaced persons. We used to get the lists from all over, and I used to scan all the lists. And I found a second cousin and a third cousin who had lived in Holland. I found them in Sweden in the Red Cross camp. That's all I found.
As survivors searched for their families and sought ways to enter the U.S., members of the Allied nations assembled in Nuremberg, Germany, to prosecute those behind the brutalities of the Holocaust. The city, like others in Germany, was a heap of ruins.
One of the things I remember, I was smoking, and I tossed the butt out of the Jeep, and 2 German women dove for it like gulls. We got to the courthouse. The courthouse was ringed with armored cars and tanks. A lot of people looked on that trial as revenge. They had it coming to them. Well, we tried very hard to make it a fair trial, make it a legal trial, but the trial gave a lot of people a lot of satisfaction.
For many, the eventual transition to life in America proved to be very difficult.
I cried when I left the Dominican Republic. I was happy there. I had a horse, I had friends. I had wonderful nuns who loved me, and I had good school, I had friends. Why would I want to leave? I didn't know that I couldn't go to college there and get a good education. I didn't think about that I wouldn't find a Jewish husband there. I didn't think about any of those things. I had a horse. I didn't want to leave my horse.
We arrived in America on January 6, 1940. And then we went on the subway with our luggage and came out here to Kew Gardens. And we walked through the park, and the snow was this high, and we had no winter clothes, or very little. Nobody thought of taking a cab or anything like that. Forget it. There was no money for those things. We had enough to eat. We had enough to get dressed. And my parents worked. My mother was a cleaning woman. She cleaned house. Meanwhile, in Germany, she didn't. You know, she had her maids.
When I came here, I worked in a shop in the raincoat in the garment district for 10 years. And I learned in Germany, I learned in the Ort, when I was in the P camp, knitting, but I couldn't find a job. So then I had a chance. I saved up some money, and I went in business.
Well, the first couple of weeks until we had an apartment, we lived with my uncle, with one of my uncles, you know, and they had 2 children, and, you know, they sort of told us what to expect. But going to school and not knowing the language is, you know, you go from class to class and they talk and you don't understand a word they're saying. So everything went just by.
You had to adjust, you had to readjust. I never spoke to my children about it. We shut up. We wanted to forget.
Richard Sonnenfeld, on the other hand, could not forget what had happened during the war. Sonnenfeld had a job of interpreting and interrogating many of the top Nazi perpetrators.
I was unbiased in my work, but look, I felt contempt for these people. Some of them I would have shot with pleasure under other circumstances. No question there was justice. Look, those people were criminals under any law, even the German law. I mean, the Nazi law didn't count for anything. We haven't been able to accomplish a system which prevents these things, but at least the Nuremberg trials have made it clear that at least the civilized world regards these things as crimes.
While 18 of the 21 major Nazi defendants were convicted at Nuremberg, in many of the survivors' opinions, justice would never be served. Many of those who lived through the war no longer had any livelihood, any place to call home, or any family.
I wish so many times either my mother or my father would be alive to talk to them about it. How they felt to pack up everything and leave something that they were used to all their lives, where they made a good living.
I was born a German. They took away my nationality. I became a British subject because I served in the forces. Became a Canadian by marriage. I became an American by choice. And that's how I'm going to die.